Hey, good morning. It is February 27th, 2018. My name is Jeff Fritz. Welcome back to the stream. I'm back here, back at home, and I'm happy to have another guest visiting with us today. I've been struggling a little bit here with showing a lot of code that demonstrates some of the topics, some of the questions that we've had, but I'm at a point now where I need to start refactoring. I need to start thinking of better practices for how to structure some of my applications. So I'm actually really happy today to bring on my guest, Steve Smith. There we are. Hey, Steve.
Hello, everybody.
So, do you want to give the quick intro of who you are so folks know who haven't seen you before?
Sure. I'm Steve Smith. My name's kind of generic, so I have an online name of Ardalis that I go by. So you'll find me on Twitter, GitHub, and just ardallis.com is my blog. I'm a Microsoft MVP. I work a lot with ASP.NET and .NET Core, and help companies write better code. So I spend a lot of time on design patterns and solid principles and refactoring techniques, things like that. You can find about 10 of my courses on Pluralsight covering those types of topics.
Yeah, let me flip over here to our full screen so you can see here's Steve's blog out there at ardallis.com. Really great material here if you want to learn how to be a better developer, how to write code better, not just how to write better code, but how to actually design and build your applications better. And then you've got a great podcast out there, don't you?
Yeah, I started it late last year. It's called weeklydevtips.com, and it's just really short, 5 or 10 minute episodes covering some short tip.
And these are great, when go out to walk the dog, and I want to listen to something in the background. I'm only going to be out for 10, 20 minutes, and I want to, learn something while I'm walking. It's kind of mind numbing to be chasing the dog around. But to listen to something like this, it keeps my mind going, and I learn something new that I can use going forward. Really cool stuff. All right. Now, I had talked to you briefly about some of the things that I had been doing with this um, Stream Tools project that I've been working on. And let me go over to GitHub and bring that up. And oh, good morning, everybody in the chat room. We're all tracking everything that's going on over there. Let's see. We have Narrowfoot over there and Wolfhound Jesse. Is that? This is surreal. I was just wearing a black horse hat. I got duped by pre-recorded video. No. Black Horse was the other day. Today we're wearing Hollywood Stock Exchange. It's a game I've been playing for a very long time. HSX.com. It's play money. You can invest in various movies, and I made a bundle last weekend on Black Panther. I wish it was real money, but I did really well on Black Panther.
It was
All
an
right.
awesome movie.
Oh my gosh, great movie. Really enjoyed that. So this is our project, the Stream Tools project, and for those that are joining us for the first time, this is a project that helps generate some of the widgets that you see here on screen. So this helpme.net goal bar here, I'll come back and talk about that in a second. This is actually being generated by an ASP.net, a web page written using C# and our cross-platform .NET Core framework, as well as the followers goal that you see here, the followers number, I'm sorry, and the total number of viewers just above Steve's head there in the corner. Now, yeah, there you go. Thank you. It's the funny things that happen when you're superimposing video, right?
Takes a while to get your fingers in the right spot, though.
Yeah. Tell me about it. Me with the chroma key, I'm always, is it this way or is it that way? Because on the screen, anyways. All right, so the helpme.net goal that you see up at the top, we in between my last stream and today, we actually hit our 1,000 follower goal. So I'm going to set up and schedule effectively a call-in talk show where if you've got a question about a .NET project, you'll be able to share that code with us, and together we'll program with some of the folks, some of the experts that I have hanging out in the chat room as well, and we'll solve your problems. So that'll be a fun stream we'll set up in the future. But this stream, I want to get Steve's help to take a look at some of the things that we've done. We've answered some great questions using this sample project, and we've built some interesting things. But gosh, Steve, I showed you some of the code. It's running away in a couple different directions here, and we could simplify it, couldn't we?
Sure. You always can.
All right. So this is where it's living. It's out there on GitHub. Anybody can take a look at it. It's all open source. I believe there's also a link in the on the wall for both the Twitch and Mixer channels if you head over there. So let's go over to our source code. I've already set up and I'm sharing my source code with Steve using live share, and you can see Steve's icon up here right under my cursor. And he can see everything that I'm doing and working on here in the code, and he can also click around and we'll be able to see his interactions as well. We have links for you out there. There you go. You can see Steve highlighting some code. We have links out there if you want to sign up and check out live share. It's still in a private preview, but folks can sign up for it, and they're slowly giving folks access to it. Let's see. Cool. I think we're all right. No new comments from the chat room. So where would you like to start? I know there were a couple things here that you had concerns about, you had questions about to make things simpler to maintain in our code.
Well, one other quick thing I'll mention is the fact that you're using Visual Studio, and I'm actually in Visual Studio Code, and all the live share stuff still works fine between us, which I think is pretty awesome. I can't wait for that to ship.
Oh my gosh, yeah. The cross Visual Studio family of products capability of that is really, really nice. And I'm thrilled that they've taken that outreach to include our completely open source editor that anybody can use in that suite of functionality. So, all right.
So looking at the code in the controllers folder, we've got 4 controllers, and if we look at each one, the followers controller is a little bit big, and there's some stuff in there that maybe doesn't belong inside the controller, like that gradient method that we're looking at here. I would probably pull that out into a service and push that into it, or if it's really just static code, which it looks like it probably is, it could probably just be a static helper method, and we wouldn't even have to use any kind of dependency injection to get to it, because it doesn't have any dependencies that I can see. It's just doing math. So that should be something I think we could probably get away with making a helper method.
Okay, so for folks that are watching and haven't seen when this was built, one of our viewer friends, Mr. Magoo, and Steve, I love the handles from some of the folks that help us out here. Mr. Magoo wrote this method to help generate the gradient that you see in that goal bar, right? We want to calculate.
Pretty awesome.
It is. And I think you're right. It is just doing math, and we could probably push this somewhere else because it isn't directly tied to building. Well, it is part of the building that user interface, but why would you?
Gradients is a separate responsibility.
Okay.
Deciding what to do with a request that comes in, which is really all a controller should do. The controller should say, I've got this request. It's got these inputs. I need to figure out where to route that, and I'm either going to return a view, or I'm going to call a service and return a response. But the actual work of doing whatever needs to be done in the processing of that response typically should be somewhere other than your controller. You want your controllers to be really thin.
And this doesn't have any references to any of our private fields. It doesn't need to be part of the instance of the controller, so we could move it out to a helper method. Then we can isolate and test it easier as well, I guess.
Right. Yeah, it's great that it already is its own method, because it makes this next refactoring really easy. You can probably make it static, and then once you've done that, then you can just, like you said, pull it into a helper method. Or if you'd rather, we could make it a service and then inject it. I suspect we'll probably do some of that as we go today as well, so folks will get to see what that looks like.
Okay.
But I don't think in this case that it's probably necessary. I think it could probably just be a static helper that we just call directly.
Okay, so where would you place that? I mean, we've already got a couple different folders here for our SignalR hubs, models, and pages and services. Do we create just a helpers folder?
You could. I'm looking on my screen to see where this is called. I'm not.
So it has one reference, and if I click the one reference, I can see it's actually set into a view bag.
Followers controller. All right, cool.
Yeah, under this
114.
Yep.
Perfect. Okay. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of a helpers folder, mostly because it tends to just um, it's not very cohesive. It has a bunch of stuff in there that isn't necessarily related to one another.
It's the junk
Um,
drawer then.
yeah, it is, and the services folder isn't necessarily a whole lot better.
Mm.
But we've kind of already made our bed that we're going to have one of those, so I would just as soon put it in there,
Yeah.
even if we end up not, you know, calling it a helper. Just call it, even if it is a static, I'd still probably call it something like a gradient service or image service or something like that.
Well, actually, looking at what I have in my services folder, and listening to what you're describing, um, I'm using the term service to refer to one of our streaming services like Twitch or Mixer, and not to a application service. So so maybe I'm overloading the term service in how I've named this folder.
Yeah, perhaps. Service does definitely see a lot of overloading of names. In ASP.NET Core, that's what everything that you register with DI is called. And that's not necessarily the case in pre.NET Core IOC containers,
Hmm.
but it is the choice that the .NET Core team chose. So now, if you're going to use dependency injection in ASP.NET Core, we're going to call that thing a service, at least from the notion of calling configure services and services collection and all of that.
Yeah. Okay. So, all
I
right.
have a client that's in the funeral memorial industry, and so they have memorial services, and we have funeral services and things like that. It's
Wow.
definitely an overloaded term.
It isn't that like that old joke about the Java language? You had an object factory, now you have an object factory.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
services all the way down.
Um, I just want to take a quick look in the chat room just to catch up with some of the folks that are over there. Our friend Isaac Levin is in there. Good morning, Isaac. Standby Reloading is there helping us out. And oh, there's our friend Mr. Magoo. He thinks we should have a junk drawer folder. That's I don't.
Right. We've got another vote for helpers. I wouldn't be totally opposed to making it a helper. I get burned with so many of the HTML helpers from the old MVC, that I try and shy away from those. Um, but that wouldn't be a bad play.
Okay. So, do you think I should rename my services folder to start making it a little bit clearer? Should we rename that to stream services? But then I'll have a stream services folder with a stream service in it.
I think you should leave services alone for now because we want to focus on one thing at a time.
Okay.
I do think there's some reorganization I would do of the services folder, specifically the fact that right now it has an interface in it, and I usually put my interfaces in a separate folder.
Okay.
And then eventually I usually end up having them in a different project from where their implementations live. But those are all things we want to focus on down the road. And it's easy to get lost in all the different things you might fix. And when you're refactoring, it's important to try and focus on one thing at a time. So.
Okay. So I guess we'll start off with a helpers folder.
Yeah, let's do helpers. If we're going to make it a static one, that seems to be the voting coming in from the chat as well. So let's just create a helpers folder. We'll make this a static image helper or something like that.
So I'll create a new class over here.
Yep.
Well, it's not really image. Display helper?
Okay. This is your project. You know the language of it better than I do, I'm sure.
Okay, so now I have this class, and it should be making its way over to you.
Yep.
All right.
I can see. Where is it? There it is. All right, so let me drive for a minute.
Sure.
Make this static class. And we'll go back to followers controller, and we'll grab that method. And that's the method. Yeah. Copy that. Come back into our helper, and just paste it in as is, and we'll make it static. And if we did things right, maybe throw in some namespaces in here.
Fantastic.
Should be all set. So I don't see any red squiggles.
No.
We probably don't even need to build. So now if we jump back to followers controller, we find the line where we were using this on 114 here. Instead of calling our gradient, we can now call display helper dot gradient, and we'll need a namespace for that as well.
Is the gradient method still private?
Did I leave that? Let's go fix that. It was, but now it's not.
Fantastic. And we could make that internal if we wanted to, but making it public, we can then test it outside as well.
Certainly. And if you weren't pinned to me in the code share, you could have fixed that while I was doing this other stuff. We could have been working a little bit in parallel there too.
Oh yeah.
All right, so now I think we're ready to test it.
Well, do we want to remove the old method that's here in the controller still?
We certainly will. But my next step would be make sure this works, and then wipe out the old code.
Okay.
Because if this doesn't work and then we realize it's not going to work, it's nice to have the old code still there without us having to fall back to source control.
All right, so I will start and see what this looks like. And we actually have to start and run this because I don't have a good test around this method here in the controller yet. If we had a unit test, we'd be able to point to it and say, oh yeah, the unit test still works.
Yes, that would be better, of course. And since it is just math, it would be pretty easy to unit test it.
It's a unit test just the gradient method.
Correct.
So I'll check the configuration because this is an easy page for us to see that gradient working. So I will add another fill bar color and let's make it go. Ooh, that changed. Did I get an update? Oh no, you know what? I'm in Edge, and this is the color selector for Edge. Well, isn't that fancy?
Oh, cool.
So that looks like it's working just fine, giving me a cool gradient.
Nice. All right, cool. So I would say that works.
Yeah.
It didn't blow up anyway. So I'm going to go ahead and delete the private method out of here.
All right, I'm going to stop the debugger. So we can see you deleted the method. Fantastic.
All right, now we're down to much less code in here.
Oh yeah.
Good.
But okay. One of the things that I had always heard when I was a lead developer, and I stressed with my junior developers, is methods that have more than 7 lines are doing too much. And
Okay.
and I look at this goal method here where we're building that gradient bar up at the top, and it sure looks like it's doing too much. I've also got what 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Dear Lord.
Yes.
As we've organically grown the capabilities of this widget, it's just grown in leaps and bounds. And I feel like this is another one where we should probably simplify.
Sure. There's a couple things that I would do. The first one is give it an actual model, which I think we talked about a little bit yesterday, that we could then use model binding on and model validation as well, rather than having 17 different parameters on the method.
So, right, this is where we would introduce the concept of a view model. And, right, the difference between a view model and a model. Well, how would you describe the difference between the two?
Well, there's many different types of models, and when we talk about a view model, we're typically referring to something that's going to be used for the display of a view, and sometimes also used when you're posting information to an endpoint, to a controller action. If you're using an API, there typically aren't views, so it doesn't make sense to call them view models so much, and I usually refer to them as API models. In this case, this is actually a view-based MVC action, so it would be appropriate to call it a view model. Your view model is a DTO. It's a data transfer object, so it should be a class that just has properties, getters and setters. There typically shouldn't be any logic in it, although you may add some model validation attributes using data annotations to make it easier for your controller to do model validation and check things like, this one's required, this one has a max length of 20, things like that.
Default values.
Yeah, you can add default values there as well.
Okay.
Very easily. The newer features in C# makes this really nice because on properties, you can just directly assign them values instead of having to have a constructor do it.
Absolutely. And I feel like we kind of have a code smell here because we have these comments here that say, well, here's what's actually happening behind all of this logic that we wrote here on lines 105 through 115.
Right. And I don't know, like, default value, I don't know even where that's being used. Like, I'm new to this code base, so if I look at that and I see default value, I'm like, well, where? I see caption, I see goal, I see width. I don't see anything that says default value, so what is that even talking about?
Right. This should probably be default caption,
Okay, that would make more sense.
That would make more sense to new folks that are coming in. And you're right, it's not being used here anywhere. And there's this weird hierarchy of deciding where's the value coming from.
Sure. And if it's doing that much logic, then again, that's something I would put somewhere else, not in the controller. One of the reasons why I'm not a big fan of having a lot of logic in the controller is that controllers are difficult to test in many cases compared to like simple services. And also their responsibility should just be all about routing a request to, generate a response. And as soon as they start doing more than that, then they're violating the single responsibility principle.
Do you want to talk about what the single responsibility principle is real quick?
Oh, sure. So the single responsibility principle is part of the solid principles, and
Okay.
it basically says that your class should only be responsible for one thing. There should be only one reason for that class to change. And so if we have a controller that is only dealing with, routing things to views, then the types of things that would cause that controller to change would be if I'm adding a new view, or if I'm changing the name of an action to point to a different named view, or something like that. Things that are directly related to that responsibility. Now, this, if we change what the default value is for the caption, I have to change this controller.
Mm-hmm.
Well, changing the default value for the caption has nothing to do with what this controller's main responsibility ought to do.
Yep.
But yet I have to go in and do surgery on this class if I want to change that behavior.
Oh, yeah. So, standby reloading actually brings up an interesting term there in the chat room about ending up in F12 hell. So if it was hiding somewhere in here, we'd be hitting F12 to go find it where that caption is being defined, and we're already running into a bit of it here, and a little bit further down we see it being passed out as we've actually already got something that's passing a follower goal model around, but it isn't very rich at this point.
Right. And we're creating a new instance of a follower goal down there when perhaps we can take in, well, for one thing, if you're passing that to the view, you probably want it to be a view model. And if it is a view model, you probably want to suffix it with the name view model. And if it's not your view model, then you want to be, passing it to a view is generally okay, but you want to be real careful about taking non-view model types as parameters into your controllers that are doing changes. So for instance, let's say this was a shopping cart application, and you were displaying the contents of the person's cart here.
Mm-hmm.
And so you say return view, and instead of follower goal, you were passing in the cart, right? And then you had another method that was taking an update, and they could click an update button on their cart, and you would take in another action on a controller that would be your update that they would do a put or a post to, and it took in the cart. Well, if you took in the whole cart and not just a model of it, then you might expose things that you didn't want to. Like the cart might have a direct reference to the items, and the items might have a direct reference to the product, and the product knows its unit price. And now if you're not careful, your model binding is going to do a bunch of magic that's going to automatically take all those things and bind them to the appropriate object model. And someone might, nefariously do a post with some JSON that guesses that they can get to the product unit price and update your product price in your system if you just let your ORM, update all the things when you do an update. So you have to be careful of that.
Yeah. Okay. So let's.
Okay. So where to start here? Looking at this goal method.
So I have follower goals sitting over here in my models folder.
All right, let's look at that. Are you still debugging? Because I've got the.
I am not. I've stopped debugging.
All right, cool. Models folder. I should just follow you.
So at this currently, our follower goal has gone a little bit lean on us because we've added all kinds of features to how the follower goal bar works, but we haven't carried them through to our model. And in fact, if you look at the followers controller, we're actually passing things out using viewBag and our model. And there's another, in my mind, another code smell that we're using two different ways to deliver content to our view template, and it's not consistent.
Right. Yeah. Your model here really is ideally your domain model, and your domain model should know how to do some of its work. And one of the things it might know how to do is specify a default value for the caption if it's not set. So if we put the logic for a default caption in your model, then we could write tests for it if we wanted to. We can also just use it from the controller without having to worry about whether or not it is a certain thing, because we can just rely on and trust that the model is going to give us a value that we can use at the controller level.
The model knows how to take care of itself, and it knows its business rules.
Yes, exactly.
Malachi in the chat room uses the term anemic domain model.
Right. And right now this is anemic in that it doesn't have any behavior. It only has data. And so it's being operated on instead of doing the work itself.
Okay. So I feel like we should bring in some of these configuration objects that we're referencing here, the empty background color, the empty font color, the font name. But there's probably more that needs to get over there, because at some point, where is it? These things, right? The width and the gradient, they need to get in there also. So I feel like there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different things that we should bring over here as well.
Right. And the other question or issue that we have to deal with is most of your values there are defaulting to configuration, and you generally don't want to have knowledge of infrastructure concerns like how you're doing configuration baked into your domain model.
Okay.
So we want the domain model to have the ability to have reasonable defaults and things like that, but we want to be able to inject those defaults in if they're coming from configuration, rather than having the domain model know how to get them itself.
Gotcha. Okay.
Generally.
So in this case, looking at this code here, where we originally tried to go is to be able to say, if there was a specified background color. Thank you, Brendan, for subscribing, and thank you to our new followers out there, Rocket90 and Helder Philippe. This is actually checking to see if the empty background color is specified. If it's not specified, use the one that comes out of our configuration. So that could be specified as something that ASP.NET picks up, either from application settings or an environment variable. Otherwise, use the value that was specified coming into this. So you have several different ways to set it, and you have this trickle-down hierarchy. So Brendan's mentioning now in the chat room that yes, you get the .NET bot as an emote on the Twitch chat room. So you're welcome, Brendan.
And your configuration itself is another model, this follower goal configuration.
Yes. So and I tried to make that something so that I could grab and have a strongly typed configuration coming in from our app settings file. So here's my strongly typed follower goal configuration on the left side of the screen, and let me bring up app settings over here on the right. I'm going to do a control comma to let me search for that file real quick, and you can see follower goal settings are right here, lines 28 through 38. And there's information there about some of these very same settings that you see in that strongly typed configuration. So now I'm getting I feel like I've got model sprawl here, Steve, where I've got a configuration file over
here. I have
here.
is like, what's the difference between follower goal and follower goal configuration?
Absolutely.
And does follower goal really need to be a domain model, or could we just use follower goal configuration for the whole everything? So far in the followers controller, I'm not seeing, we're not calling any methods on follower goal. It doesn't have any, and there's not a lot of logic to it that I can see. So I mean, it might be that we don't even need follower goal necessarily separate from follower goal configuration. Do we?
Okay. No, they look. So let me put the two side by side. So there's follower goal configuration on the left, and here's follower goal on the right. They both have a caption, and in fact, the configuration actually has a default. The configuration does not have a current value.
Okay.
It does have a goal versus a goal value over here, but I mean, so what? They're both logically the same.
Right. And if configuration did have a current value, it would basically just serve as the default current value until you replaced it with something live.
Right. What's coming out of our services, out of our streaming services that we're connecting to.
Right.
So I think we should get rid of the follower goal object.
I think so too.
Now, do you just flat delete it and see what breaks, or do you? I've seen folks rename it by throwing an X in front of the name or an underscore and seeing where all the
Right.
references
Yeah,
break
or
first.
you can comment it out, whatever you like. It really comes down to how much you're using source control, in my opinion. So, what I would do is I would run all my tests, make sure everything runs right now, and I would do a git commit and say, that I'm at the point where we moved gradient was the last thing we did, and then
So,
at that point I'd be happy to just delete the thing because I know that I can just do a revert if I don't like where we end up.
so I'm here inside of. I'm using PowerShell, of course, so I can get my cool posh Git highlighting here. Let me do a Git checkout, and let's create a branch, and we'll call this. Well, everything's a feature, so we'll call it feature refactoring, and let's add that helpers. All right.
You don't want to just do a git add dot?
So I've always been told that that's while it's cheating, it's not entirely accurate. You may accidentally include something that you don't intend.
Right, but then you just run git status to see what you just added.
That's, yeah, you're right.
I mean, I do it because I'm lazy, let's say, or efficient, depending on how you want to look at it. There is a small chance that you'll add something you didn't mean to, but that should be the exception, not the rule.
Gotcha. Okay. So
So
I've done.
I'm not, worried about it either way, but just
Okay.
curious why you did it your way. Cool. All right, so we've got a commit. We could push that if we want, but there's no need to at this point.
Yeah. Here's a question in the chat room. How about composition? I get the feeling if you got rid of one, you will mix layout and logic concerns. I think that's Sushinator in the Twitch chat room. I think you're referring to follower goal versus follower goal configuration.
Right. And we aren't done yet. We're gonna kind of explore this option and see if we like where we end up. And let's face it, follower goal is not that big of a class. If we have to throw it back in, it won't take long to put it back there.
Okay. And folks are saying about using the Git Visual Studio plugin so they can see what's going to be checked in. Do you have a preference? Do you prefer using the Visual Studio plugin or another visual tool? I know folks like Git Kraken.
I use Git Kraken
Okay.
currently, and I also use the command line. So I'm pretty much jumping back and forth. If I want to see like the history or see diffs and things, I use Git Kraken because it's got some nice visual tools for that. I do use Visual Studio sometimes as well, but my preference is the command line and Git Kraken.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to just put an X in front of this just to break anywhere that it's referenced.
Right.
So I can see, and then I'll do a build because I don't have a good unit test around this method. I know, bad me. What I really should have done is just click the references thing here and see where it was. So it is really just over here in this one method in followers controller. So
Right.
so I feel like what I could do is I could take that current value and we were saying we could reuse this in our follower goal configuration.
Correct.
And then
Let's
just
push that over there. It's just a get set.
and if we set a current value of 1.
Sure. Or -1 if you want to make sure that you know that you've got a problem and that it's coming from your default.
Well, if I have -1, it would break the visualization. So maybe 0.
Okay. 0 makes sense. But you don't have any followers until you verify that you do.
Yeah. All right. So I'm going to go back now to my followers controller. So
interesting. You're using -1 here that you're getting from somewhere.
Where is it getting that? Is that coming in from? It's coming in as one of the attributes, one of the input parameters. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's your default there. Okay. So if we haven't set it, then we're gonna update it if it's equal to the current follower count. Otherwise, it's current. All right.
But I can now change this instead of new follower goal. I can change this to bringing in new follower goal configuration.
Well, we shouldn't need to have a new one at all because we already have the configuration. So you should just be able to pass capital configuration to the view.
Right? You're right. We need to make sure the caption is set on that and the current value.
Yes. but that's what all this other work is.
Absolutely.
So,
Okay.
so
So
the current value could be, here, since we just added that.
sure.
Not pulling it on mine. Oh, this is right. Okay. Equals, and then we'll just steal your logic from here.
I'm going to move follower goal configuration over here just so folks can see what you're typing. So now you've moved up what was down here on line 121. And I think we need to bring the goal. Is the goal value in there somewhere?
I would have thought so, but it looks like no. So sure, let's add that too. I think it's just goal, right?
Yes.
Now this stuff also, we're probably going to just pull in with model binding once we get to that point, but for now, this should work. Now our view is going to expect something called goal value, so we'll have to check the view and make it use goal instead once we do this. But from here, we should be able to do configuration. And then we can build, and we can go look at that view and fix up where it had goal value.
All right, so I will kick off a debug launch here. So I see our friends Brendan and Steven have renewed subscriptions. Thank you so much. And yes, they now have the .NET bot emote that I just released yesterday. Standby Reloading is saying if you use -1, you'll miss out on 37,000 potential values. I think that's only if I had a, what is it, a short? Anyways. All right, so I'm going to go to my configuration. Let's see if this still works. No, we've got an error. And that's probably where you were saying that goal doesn't exist.
Maybe. Is it? Yeah, that's it.
So I'm actually going to click.
I fixed it on my side.
Oh, of course. Did you?
Yeah, I saved it in goal.cshtml.
Oh, look at this. So, all right, for folks watching, while we were looking at the web page here on the stream, Steve went into Visual Studio and he changed it over here in the goal CSHTML. And you could see, right, you could see his flag there where he made the change. Excuse me. I'm going to go back over to my browser and refresh. And it doesn't quite like it yet. What am I missing here?
Your error is on a different place than my fix. So my fix was necessary, but not the problem you're seeing.
Oh, you know what? We're receiving it's a Razor page with a model type of follower goal.
Right, and that needs to be follower goal configuration now.
So this is up here where we have the @model declared. Yep, we need to change that. So thank you for updating. Yeah, and folks are saying I need to turn on word wrap. Never! All right, so now I have goal value down here in a couple places.
All right.
On 69 and 75.
69 is fixed. 75 is fixed.
Fantastic. Now what's great about this is Steve's saving these changes and they're just going through no problem.
Yeah, this is pretty nice for pair programming. This is better than any other tool I think I've ever used.
Cool. So I refreshed and that looks like it's working properly here on this page. I'm going to close that and refresh over here. And it's working. Fantastic. Cool. So I've got my cool caption I can now. So this looks a little bit weird, and I have to think about this. So the first time in, it has the caption isn't passing all the way through. You see this? The caption is being specified as configure me, but the value is follower goal, right? So if I change this to thank you, Steve, and click preview, even though I've specified that and that's what's on the caption in the URL, it's not passing through. And this is one of those items that we were saying during that refactoring might not land properly.
Right. We need to make sure those wire up.
Right.
And the caption and the current, well, your follower goal is a caption, isn't it?
The words follower goal.
Yes.
Yes, that's your
default caption that's coming from somewhere.
Right.
Okay, and we just need to make sure that that's being overwritten.
Now, I think that is inside of our Thank you, Black Echo, for the follow. I think that was coming out of our follower goal configuration. I'm going to click over here. So the default caption specified here on line 8 in that model is follower goal. So we need to make sure that it's properly being passed through and set on that object that we're now returning. So let me go back to the controller. And we are, where is it? Down in here. So if we receive a caption, there we are, line 104. So it's defining what the caption is, and we need to set that back on our configuration.
Right. We never
caption.
set caption either. That's everything that you were newing up in that thing. Are you typing?
Nope. I just scrolled down a little bit.
Interesting. When I hit enter, it just jumps me right back. Is that because we're debugging? Maybe we can't.
Yes, we are. You're right. I'll stop debugging.
So the behavior I'm seeing is I'll hit enter. It's jumping me to the next line, line 114, and then immediately deleting that line and jumping me right back, but not telling me anything else, not saying, hey, you need to stop debugging. So that would be something we could fix. Also, IntelliSense is a little bit slow.
Yeah, that's something that they're working on. It's a performance fix that the live share team is well aware of.
Okay, and by slow I mean it doesn't come up. I hate control dot, but that didn't help. So I'm just I'm guessing caption is the property we want, and it looks like it works. So let's try that.
All right, so that should work. While we're waiting, while that's starting up, Malachi asks, when is view models and adding something like AutoMapper to map from domain models to view models a little bit of overkill? What do you think?
Well, it's overkill if you don't need it and it's really simple. But if you're using a domain model and you have a lot of different controllers that have views that have view models, and you want to follow the practice of not exposing your domain model in your views or in your APIs, then you're going to end up with a bunch of view model or API model DTOs that map usually fairly closely to your domain model, and it's tedious, writing code that is left-hand, right-hand code to do that manually, and that's where AutoMapper really takes some of the work away. I'll usually start off on a small project by just doing it by hand. But once I get beyond 3 or 4 of these things where I can see that I'm doing this left-hand, right-hand assignment code, that's when I'll pull in AutoMapper and just set up the rules for it. And then it's from that point forward, it's pretty easy to just keep going with AutoMapper.
Cool. All right. So this looks like it's working now. And if I had my colors, let's see, right, my second color, I'll make it somewhere green because I like green, and that sets, and everything looks good. I get this properly. Let me make sure my font passes all the way through. We were having some
unit tests for this.
Oh, wouldn't it be great? There we go. I like the play font. That looks like it's working. Fantastic. All right. So
cool.
Do we
start? I think the next thing I would do is get rid of ViewBag, because we already know ViewBag is not being used for a whole lot, and a lot of what's being done on a view is reference to the config variable. If we jump back to the view and look at the top, you'll see on line 4 there's a config that is viewbag.configuration, which is actually the exact same thing as our model. So anywhere we are using that config variable, we could just say model dot and get the same behavior.
Okay.
So that would be the next thing I would do.
Okay.
So we just nuke that out of there, and find all the configs and say model. And
I think we have one there on line 11 where it's bringing in the Google font.
Oh, thank you. And there's probably a few more down below. I wish it would turn them red for me. Are they red on your screen? Or squiggly or anything?
No, it is not.
Well, I think I got them all. Control F, config. Yep, looks like I got them all.
Good.
Control F confirms. All right, so we can test that, but I'm pretty sure that'll still work. And then we've got some ViewBag stuff.
Yeah, we should get rid of those.
Get rid of viewbag.configuration on line 116 because we're not using that anymore. So we can nuke that. We still have width and gradient, and neither one of those is in our follower configuration, is it?
No, yeah, the width isn't a property over here yet, and that should probably be. Yeah,
Yeah,
it can
so
be.
yeah, the question I would ask next is, should they be? Are those things that you would set in config ever, or are those things that are part of that model? Or should they
So
just live hard-coded inside the controller?
that very good questions. So let me peel back the curtain here so you can see a little bit of the Wizard of Oz, how this works. I'm gonna just show. Let me see if I can drag. So here's what the OBS properties looks like for this and how I actually run it when I'm running the stream. I actually point to that web server, my follower's goal, so I get to this thing. There's my goal value being passed in, but I can pull it from configuration, and I have a file that has all my environment variables that I'm passing in. So the question would be, when I'm configuring this, is it easier for me to put the configuration for this bar in the request to navigate to it, or things that should be standard like the width? Should that be an environment variable? But I think the width is something that I want to be able to specify here. I would prefer to specify here and not in my embedded configuration file, because here's where, right, the difference between something that's standard and fixed, right? I don't want to change the font of this all the time. I don't want to I don't want to change the colors that I'm using all those times. Those are things that should be fixed in as a standard how I'm presenting this. But the things that do change when I set a new goal are going to be my new value and my new caption. Things like that width, maybe I do want to have fixed and sitting in that application configuration. So I think I'm okay with moving width into application configuration in app settings, so that it could be something that I default and hide in a configuration file, and I don't have to think about here when I'm actually requesting and building it. Make
Right.
sense?
Yep.
All right.
I think I think what we want to do generally is have our configuration type, the follower goal configuration class, be the thing that we pass in as the model to this goal.
Okay.
And we'll take all of those variables that are on there now and put them, just basically make sure they're all on that configuration class. And then anything that we want to allow to default to config, for now we'll do the code that you're doing here in this method. We'll check and see if the value didn't come in from the model binding, and we'll make sure none of them are required unless they really need to be. And if it didn't show up from model binding, then we'll set it from config.
Cool.
So
Okay.
if you want it, you pass it, and if you don't pass it, we'll pull it from config.
Okay.
So for now, where does that leave us? We have width that we're talking about. Width is not on configuration. Let's put it on configuration.
Okay.
So do you want to add it to configuration, and I'll update the controller?
Sure. So here's what I'm going to do. I am going to just pin the. Hang on. Give me a second here. Let me unpin you.
Sure.
I'm going to set this as a new vertical tab group. So while you're doing that, I will add the width over here.
Yep. And it should probably just be an int get set, I'm expecting.
Mm-hmm. So I will add the width, and I'm over here on the right side of the screen. You can see Steve over there on the left. There we go. I've got a simple property for that. And now you've got the value there on line 115. Fantastic.
All right, and then we're going to need that width somewhere in the view. Viewbag.width now becomes model.width.
Let me go over there so we can see what you've changed. There you are on, was it line 65, line 64. Cool.
Seems to be it.
Yep.
All right.
And this is all in the name of, right, making this bar extremely configurable, and even using all those app settings that we have hanging out there. A couple comments just in the chat room. I want to cycle back there. Ace Flames here says this stream is gold. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ace. We appreciate you tuning in this morning. Let's see. What I don't like about IOC containers, lets people hide bad code. What do you think about that, being able to hide bad code?
Um, it's not a bad criticism. It's possible when you're using an IOC container that you're getting these dependencies injected, and you don't necessarily see that code. You know it's coming from somewhere else. And if it doesn't work, then your code that depends on it is going to blow up, and that can be frustrating, especially if you're used to working where all the stuff that's going on is right there in the code, and you can see everything and just step through line by line by line. Now, in the debugger, you can still debug and step into that dependency and see that code. So it's not really hidden, if you're using a debugger. And if you have tests on those dependencies, then and you know those tests are passing, then that gives you some level of confidence that the code is doing at least what the tests say that it's doing. But it is it is a learning curve for folks that aren't used to working with that type of abstraction, to go and track down where the actual implementation is. And it's nice that the tooling has improved so that instead of only having go-to definition, which for an interface will just take you to the interface, which is not that useful, we also now have go-to implementation, which for the longest time you needed add-ins like ReSharper to easily do, but now Visual Studio has that support built in. So
yeah, ReSharper, Code Rush, even Just Code had support for that at one point.
Yep.
All right. So we've effectively gotten rid of all those things that use. We have the viewBag gradient that's still being passed in.
So the gradient, and that gradient is literally just passing in that display helper. Why don't we just call that display helper from our view as an option?
So back colors, back blend, and width, are those being passed in our configure? Actually, I think they are in follower goal configuration.
I don't know. I don't see back colors or back blend being set anywhere. Why don't we just add gradient to?
Well, so here, I'm going to put the two side by side here so we can see. So here's the configuration. I think we're doing just a little bit of work here to present them that we might be able to pull into that POCO. So back colors, back blend, and width. Right, back colors is string null or empty, what's being passed in as background colors, or pull from configuration BG color array. So, right, I feel like we could be doing the same thing here, right? Back colors is just a remap of fill BG color array.
Yes.
Or, yeah, fill BG blend array.
What is gradient's type?
Gradient? Where is it?
Oh, it's just a string.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, why don't we just put that string gradient on our configuration, just like we did with width for now, and that'll at least let us get rid of all those things.
Okay, so literally just put that string over here in our configuration model so we can pass it through and then get rid of all that.
Yes. Okay. And then if we decide that it really doesn't belong there and we want to have an actual view model that's separate, then we'll put it on the view model. But
so I'll add the property over here.
All right, and I'll do my thing on my side again, and we'll be done with viewBag. ViewBag is kind of a smell to me because it means that you don't really know what you're going to pass to the view. We're just going to pass a bunch of whatever non-typed stuff, and then the view is just going to pick it up. If you had some kind of very dynamic application where maybe you had a view that was being used by multiple different controllers, and you couldn't strongly type a view model to it for whatever reason, I could maybe see having that kind of loose typing. But generally, you're going to get better compile time checking and detect errors earlier if you use a view model and not a ViewBag.
So, and you could actually, just delete down the next two lines to concatenate up where it says display helper gradient. Yeah. Cool. So now we have to go back to our Razor page and just trim that. So everywhere it's referencing viewbag.gradient.
Which is only one place. All right, so we're done with viewbag.
And this is where you were saying it might make sense to just call that helper, that display helper, right from here on line 20, instead of passing that information back and forth.
Correct. That at that point it could be an HTML helper because it's only being called from a view, and or some view helper or something like that, and that would be an option. For now, I think we leave it alone, and it's working. But we'll as we keep refactoring, we'll think about it. So I would test everything right now, which is pretty much a manual step.
Yeah.
You're going to
Okay,
take care
every
of.
time you say that, I feel bad. I feel like before we get done here, we should probably get some unit test around this.
We will.
So to summarize where we've come up to this point, we've really gone after simplifying this method, making it easier to understand exactly what business logic is going on inside of this. So this so far looks good, and if I add this, and I'll set this back to, some green. You know what, let's make it red. Make it different. So that looks like it's functioning properly. We've got our gradient. Let's see if we can make this break a little bit funny. Right, and if I preview on that, let me do that. Now it's a little bit harder on that break. That looks good. I mean, it's doing the gradient differently. So, and Brendan, our friend Brendan there in the chat room is saying, more testing. Yeah. Yeah, all right.
All right. So at this point, since everything works and we've done a decent little chunk of work getting rid of viewbag and that other type, the follower goal type, I would go ahead and delete follower goal and then do another commit.
All right. So I'm going to go find follower goal. I'll do a control comma so I can search for it real quick. There's follower goal. So this is inside models. I will delete. Goodbye. It always feels good to delete code.
It may come back. We're probably going to want a view model.
Oh, don't do that to me. All right. So now I will just give me a carriage return. The files that are changed, follower controller, follower goal is deleted, follower goal configuration was updated in our Razor page.
Ship it.
All right. Oh, no, I do need to do an add, don't I?
Yep.
Because I have the delete. I always thought that was weird. You had to add something that you've deleted. You can't just say it's modified and go find it. All right, so refactored to eliminate follower goal and view bag usage.
Sounds great.
Cool. Look at that, rewrote to 90%. That's a lot of change in there. Scott Addy says, I don't always test, but when I do, it's in production. Yeah, we'll get you, Mr. Addy. Okay, so I'm feeling better about this already, but we still have some of this weird business logic to find out here around the priorities.
What I would like to do next is start using a model for the goal instead of all the separate parameters. And right now we're passing.
You mean for the input parameters?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So I would start using model binding here instead of just passing in a bunch of primitive types. And our model will probably be a follower goal configuration at the moment.
Okay.
We'll see how that works. We may have to tweak it, but that'd be my starting point. So let's see. Can you pull follower goal configuration up on your screen for a moment?
Sure. I have it over here on the left side.
Yeah, like we have caption, we have goal, which is goal. Okay, we have width. We know we have what is current. Current is current value.
It's current value. Yeah.
So we need to adjust that, but that'll work. BG colors as a string. We don't have that, do we?
It is fill background color. Yeah, fill background color, and then it gets turned into an array a little bit later.
Okay, so we need some type of thing that was BG colors in the thing that's passed into this.
Yeah, right. I think we need to remap that name to fill background color.
And you think that will work?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fine. BG blend. Do we have that? Is that your fill BG?
Fill background color blend.
blend.
Yeah, down here on 32. Now it's hiding behind my head here.
Your empty background color, I see. Empty font color, I see. Font name, I see. Okay, yeah, we've got them all. So, the next step, I think, would be just to nuke all this stuff. And, well, let's not totally nuke it. Let's copy it so we can keep those defaults if we need them. And I'll comment that out just so we can see it. Because if any of those defaults we want to keep, we'll put them on our model type on the follower goal configuration.
Okay.
But now we're going to take in a follower goal configuration, and we'll just call that the model. And one of the first things that we want to do in here is check for model validation, even though we're not doing anything with it right now. It's always good to do this check, and you can set this up as like a guard clause and just return that. And I don't have IntelliSense, so I'm trying to remember, was it model state.errors?
I think so. Let me do a control. No, not those.
Model state dot.
Not error count. Validation state? No. Values. No. Or is it just model state?
Maybe it is just model state.
Yeah, it is just model state.
Yeah, do that. Okay, cool.
Now, what might be good to do here, right, is one of the things that we built while we were building this goal capability is we said, you know what, there's a lot of features that are in here. We need to document how they're usable and how you can configure them. So we actually wrote another action, and this might be something that doesn't feel quite right, but it actually, if you don't pass in and trigger some of those other things that build a follower goal configuration, instead we'll return the documentation.
Okay.
So would it make sense, instead of just returning a bad request, if you have a bad model state, to route over to this version and be able to throw some sort of an error message at the top of the docs that says invalid configuration, here's the documentation for you.
Yeah, you could totally do that. But let's do that, I would say, as a to-do.
Okay.
Because we could do that right in here instead of this bad request. You know, your docs view probably doesn't have a way to display an error.
It does not yet.
Nope. We would do something like set error message in view bag, and this would be an example where we might want to use a view bag because that view right now probably doesn't even take a view model, and something like an error message is something you can just pull off the view bag, and then well, let's just return the view for now. The to-do will be to set the error message. For now, we can just steal that code there, paste it right there, and that should work.
Cool.
All right. Now, if we screw this up while we're developing and we end up at that docs page and we don't see any information about what failed, that'll slow us down. So we might get rid of that. But we're not doing any model validation right now, so I don't expect that to be a problem.
Okay.
Speaking of to-dos, we have this to-do handle empty caption. Are we doing that? I think that's what this is.
Yeah, I think we are down there now.
All right, so I think that's a comment that's useless, so let's get rid of that.
It's overdue.
Default value follower goal, that I know is on our configuration, so that could go.
If I scroll up here on the left side, you can see it's there on line 8, so we're good there.
Lowest priority, highest. This is kind of describing the logic of what we're going to do, and I think we probably keep that for now. I think. So let's see, what is this? We want to call back. Well, I think we just need one simple comment, and we'll get rid of that soon. But our comment is going to be something like load unspecified values from configuration, right? And that's pretty much what that's saying, I think. Does that make sense to you?
It does.
Okay, so we'll get rid of that. So now our model has a caption on it, and in here we're going to say model.caption equals, and basically just pull model.caption through all these things. Right?
Now you're keeping this trickle down, this hierarchy logic here in the controller. Should that be here, or should that be over in our configuration? Well,
I think neither. But for now, I want to get this to build, and we'll keep all the logic just in place. We just want to get rid of all these red squiggles.
Okay.
So if you want to work from the bottom up, I'll work from the top down. And basically, we're replacing lowercase local variables with model dot properties.
Okay, so here's what I'm going to do to kind of show that we're both doing this at the same time. I'm actually going to split the screen.
Okay.
So you'll be able to see Steve working at the top of the screen, and I'll stay focused down here at the bottom of the screen. And our friend Tim Hewers in the chat room, he says he loves seeing how we're using live share. Thanks, Tim. Appreciate you tuning in. All right, so we're replacing all the places where it's referencing, these values that are being passed in. And instead of just saying configuration.width, we're setting it to model?
Pretty much, yeah. Whatever the appropriate model dot property is.
And then we're going to end up returning not view configuration, but view model.
Correct.
Okay, so let's replace the view call to that. And I will say that. And then over here for the width being passed in, this is going to be the model width, right?
Yes.
All right. And the model width, well, we already have it. It's being passed in. So I actually don't need this line, 115.
Right. If those aren't, like model.caption on line 104 eliminates the need for line 114. Model.goal on 105 eliminates the need for 113. So this is going to get cleaned up a little bit as we go here.
Yeah. Gosh. So I'm gonna comment out 113, and you're right. Line 104 that you changed up here, I don't need line 114, so I'm going to comment that one out as well.
Right.
So now we're into these ones with the colors, and this is where it's going to be a little bit weird because we're going to end up having to remap some of these attribute names. Okay, so this one is one of the first ones where we actually need to think about this. Model dot current value, because I'm actually pulling it not from what was passed in, the incoming model attribute, model parameter. I keep confusing parameter and attribute. The incoming model parameter versus the stream service, what's actually being calculated. So the current value.
That one requires a little bit of thought. The rest of these are pretty much just copy paste.
Yeah, left, right, left, right. So the current value equals, well, if the model dot current value does equal -1, then use the current follower count. Otherwise, yeah, use model dot current value. Cool. I think that takes care of them. And then because we changed some of those attribute names from BG colors and to these full, more descriptive C# friendly colors, I think we're going to want to go back over to our Razor template and clean up some of those HTML input names so that they line up here.
Probably yes. Okay. On your form, yes.
Yeah. All right, so let's save this. Oops, wrong button. There we go. All right, so next is the Razor template. So that is, right, it is goal, CSHTML. So I'm going to bring that up. I just did a control comma to get that to pop up. You know, at one of these days, I'm going to, come on, goal, CSHTML. Wrong one. It doesn't want to open for me. There it is. Goal CSHTML. Oh no! So this is a problem that I've seen with LiveShare is when I go in to view a Razor template, Every now and again, I get this where it won't let me in.
Hmm.
All right, so let me close that. Let me see if I may need to stop and restart the live share here because, right, it even, look at this. It shows me a little lock here on this.
Huh.
Right, and
Interesting.
I don't even have a.
Well, if it makes you feel better, we don't need to go into that view. You need to go into the one below it. Goal configuration.cshtml. Can you open that one?
Nope, I don't think I can open any of these.
Huh. Well,
Yeah, it's complaining about the iTag helper feature. Oh, fun.
interesting. If you want to pull them out, if I make changes to them, they'll still change on your file system, right? So you could just, you know, well, it won't live update that, will it?
Maybe. Maybe? Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. All right, just to make sure that we have a document of this. I'm not even going to use Notepad. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to double click and open this, and I'm going to take a screenshot of that. This is something, whenever I'm using preview software, I like to make sure that I do a little bit of this. I'll have either OneNote or Notepad open. And I'm going to grab my screenshot tool here, and I'm just going to grab a screenshot of this so that I can come back and properly report this to the team that's working on this feature, so they know there's something here that we need to take a look at, and that they have an appropriate reference to it. And I can also note that this happened at about an hour 13 into here, so they can pick up on those changes on that issue. Open a Razor template with a tag helper embedded. All right. So that way I'm being a good beta tester and getting information back to those folks. So you're going to be going in there and you're tuning up some of those things, and it's really not going to open for me, is it? No. Here's what I'm going to do then, just to circumvent everything. I'm going to open Visual Studio Code and actually look at it from here, because this isn't trying to do anything with the tag helpers, and I'll be able to go into goal. And I won't see the update immediately over here. Oh, look at this. We're downloading updates. Feels good.
All right, so on my screen, I have done a couple things while you're fighting with that. I have modified follower goal configuration.cs to get rid of some white space so that I can actually see all the properties without scrolling.
All right, let me bring that up so I can see what we can see what you changed there. Follower goal configuration. All right. Oh, come on. I get it. I get what you're trying to do there, but I'm a big fan of leaving space between these, and because I have the
It's because you have the code lens.
Yeah, the code lens turned on. I've got that little bit of text jammed between each one of these.
Yeah, it looks nicer on mine in VS Code because it doesn't have that text, so I can kind of see that. But right now, I'm trying to work with a whole bunch of those properties and compare them to what I have in the form, and not being able to see them all at a glance was just driving me crazy. So you can back out that commit if you want. Let's see. So on these different forms, we have font name, and they just need to match close enough. So I've got font name matches font name. That's cool. I have goal, which matches goal. That's fine. I've got current, which matches current value now. So I'm going to change that one to be current value.
Right. Yeah, it's not jumping through to that. Oh yeah, we've really broken this good.
We've got empty BG color, which is empty background color. So I'm going to change BG to background.
All right, I am going to take another screenshot here while you're doing that.
All right. I have empty font color, which matches. And then we have another row where, where's our input? BG blend 1. That's interesting, because you've got an array of these BG blends. But what
yeah. So, all right, let me take my next screen. So the other, right, the other blend is there, right? Because it's an array, we want to make sure that we capture those for each one of, right? So we know the position of each one of the gradients.
Right.
All right, so I'm going to save this one as well. All right, and this was while following. All right.
So if I just call it fill background color 1, will that work?
Fill background color 1. Well, that's only the first position in the in that array, right? It goes and it's trying to fire some JavaScript to lay out all those elements in the array.
Someone in chat is asking what happens to the code when LiveShare dies. The code's fine. The code's in Git, and we each have a copy of it. So if our connection dies, it shouldn't have any real problem. I think maybe if I have some unsaved stuff in my editor and LiveShare dies, I may not be able to sync that back to you.
So let's try that. Let's go ahead and save on your side. I'll do a save on my side, and let's stop LiveShare and reconnect and see what happens.
Well, I'm gonna type in a couple characters just to see what happens to them. All right, so I'm not saving that on purpose.
Okay. All right, so I've saved all my changes. I'm going to disconnect LiveShare.
And all my stuff closed up. It says the owner has ended the current collaboration session. Open folders and editors will now close. I can say OK.
Yeah, I think you're going to lose that code.
I think maybe it got saved on your end because my little white dot disappeared. So
I can open that. I can open that Razor template now. Check that out.
Go to that Razor template for goal configuration CSHTML.
Go down here. Yep, I've got a red check. And where did you put in this little bit of code?
Let's go down a little bit. It was just I typed in ASDF in the middle of a thing. So do a Control F or Control I for ASDF.
Yep, there it is.
Yeah. Okay. So it got saved by virtue of you saving, I think, because I didn't do anything on my side. But you pulled it in. So that worked reasonably well. I mean, the likelihood of losing code is pretty small.
It's pretty low. Okay, so I'm going to reshare again.
And I still have, if I look at my recent files on Visual Studio Code, there's a recent file that is C user Steve app data local temp, temp, and then some big string. So the actual files we were working on are also in my temp data on my end if I needed to recover them.
Right.
All right, so you're gonna Skype me the new link. You did?
Yep, you should have that.
Got it. And I clicked on the link, and Visual Studio Code is launching. And just like that, there you are.
All right.
And I'm back up.
Fantastic.
Okay, so we're looking at the BG color and BG blend arrays and figuring out how the model binding would work on those.
Right. So where is that? They are, gosh. Yeah, there you are. This element right in here. Right.
You've got some JavaScript that's dynamically adding these controls, right?
Yes. Right. So you can click that plus button, and it'll add those to this collection. And then when we actually do the preview, right? So there's the button down here to preview. That's actually, it's not doing the submit anymore. It actually goes through and reformats that. Here it is, load preview, and then here you can see the URL template, how it's being built on lines 187.
And it's pulling the array together on line 128. And then further down below in lines 143. So I think if we leave those alone and let your JavaScript do its thing, at some point the JavaScript's going to append that. There it is. You've got it highlighted. Yeah, if we just change those lines on lines 187, 188, I think we can leave the rest of it in the form alone.
Yeah. Well, so that actually, hang on, that's the empty background color and the empty font color. So yeah, we need to get those lined up right. But these here for get BG colors and get BG blend, we need to make sure they set the appropriate argument names, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Where are those? Down there. Yeah, those will need to be updated as well.
Right.
BG colors, yeah, line 225, that just needs to change. All right, so cool.
That's easy to change, right? I mean,
Right, they're all easy to change. So I just need to pull these up on separate.
Well, here, let me put them up side by side so our viewers here can see what we're looking at. So, right, we're going to take advantage of the Visual Studio feature here. Not Visual Studio, ASP.NET feature, where it's going to do the model binding. When it sees this parameter name, right?
Matching.
And yeah, it's going to match that parameter name to whatever the property name is here on the right. So empty BG color, if we replace that with empty background color, using the model binding feature of ASP.NET, it'll actually take the value that's here to the right and put that into this class that's here in my right panel and make that available to us in our method. This way now we're not chasing around these different value types between all the different things, and the work that Steve and I have been doing here this morning will simplify this flow and take advantage of ASP.NET just pushing the data that has the same name and the same type back and forth appropriately in our code. Is that a good way to describe it?
Yep.
Standby Reloading says, that's a serious mouse wheel you got there.
He's probably referring to the sound mine makes because it's right next to my microphone.
Oh, okay.
All right, so then we want to do BG colors here. And what should that map to?
Let me see where you're
go
looking.
Back to the controller.
Okay, so hang on. So you're here at BG colors. So that's going to map to fill background color. Because there's a little bit of evolution, right? Here comes tribal knowledge of this application where it shouldn't be. This started with just a single background color. And our friend SQL Mr. Magoo, who's there he is in Mixer in the chat room, he took an issue item that we had out there and said, hey, it'd be really cool if we could do this with a gradient and have multiple colors. So you could go red, yellow, green. And he just extended this feature so that instead of having just one color, you could have multiple. So this gets plugged into there, and you can see the color array is just a split of that one property.
Right. Sure. So let's do that. On the chat, JoeBun44 asks if you could use an attribute on the model to keep those shorter in your URL. Yes, you certainly can. The other thing you can do is take this stuff in through the body of a post. In this case, we're building it all up on a get, so it's going to be in the query string. But for things that are pretty big, a lot of times you'll use a post and pull it off the body.
Well,
this is not doing a command, and that's why it makes sense to be a get.
And the way that the feature works inside of OBS for us to actually map it, it's really nice to be able to pass it on the query string because I can just add new features, add different configuration by just adding different items on my query string going across. So it gives us some flexibility there. Our friend Lisa Sidlow is following us now on Twitch. Thank you for joining us, Lisa. And Leonard on Twitch asks, why do I not use ReSharper? I personally don't use ReSharper when I'm doing demonstrations and when I show things here on stream, because I want you to see what comes with Visual Studio. Those add-on tools like ReSharper and CodeRush, they're phenomenal tools. They're great. I encourage you to use them if they make you happy. But I want you to see what the default experience is so you can really see how we're working with the code and you don't lose some of what the changes are because a tool makes a magic refactoring and automatically moves something somewhere else. So good question. Thank you. Right. Does that seem like a good reason to use, Steve, to not always show ReSharper?
Yeah, I mean, we're trying to show what's available to anyone, and regardless of them having to install third-party tools that aren't free. So, if you just have regular Visual Studio, you have Visual Studio Code, which you can run anywhere for free, then these are the features that you have. Not to say that there's anything wrong with those tools. Those tools are great, and I've used them many times. Although honestly, the latest versions of Visual Studio and Visual Studio Code, I think make it less and less necessary to use some of the add-ins. They still add value, but it's not Visual Studio 2005 era. It was really difficult to work productively with this type of loosely coupled code, and to have a built-in fast test runner. ReSharper was gold.
Yes.
Then.
Yes. Yeah. Which now I'm thinking I need to do a stream at some point in the future where I'm doing .NET development with VI. I think our friend Suze Hinton would love seeing that. All right. So we want to get these things mapped correctly. So I think we can just change where you've highlighted BG colors here in the Razor template. I think we can just change that to fill background color, and it will just work.
Yep. You want to go ahead and do it since you got it highlighted, I see?
All right. So fill background color. Wow, we've got a bunch of folks following us here. Thank you, Leonardo, and thank you, Quidano. I appreciate you folks tuning in here this morning. I look forward to hearing from you in the chat room.
If you do it in VI, you've got to do it in Emacs too, though, just to be fair.
And and our friend Tim Hewer says, I'm going to pretend I didn't just hear you say that. Oh, no, we love VI. VI is a great tool.
All right, what's the BG blend? That's the next one we need to deal with.
So I think that's the same as fill background blend, because this is the array of that blend coordinate here.
All right, let me tack that one on there.
Fantastic.
All right, we should be pretty close to done. We might have missed something up here. I'm scrolling up on my side. That's all good.
Tim.
And again, the reason we're doing this is just because we're replacing simple parameterized inputs to our controller with a model that's just going to use model binding.
And then, right, thinking further out, right? This is almost future-proofing a little bit, because as we add features to this, right? If we add one of the criticisms that I'm looking at with this, one of the things I think we can improve, looking on in the video here, if you look up at the top, the 1030 that's in the middle here, that value, it's white text over this orange background. It'd be nice to have some control over that. Well, if I want to add more control over those font colors, well, now those would be additional properties I add inside my follower goal configuration.
Right.
And if I use the same names over here in my properties in that template, it'll all just flow through, and I don't have to go and write more code in all these different places to remap and pass it appropriately and translate. So I think it's a good, future-proofing's the wrong word, future compatible coding, right? We talk about backwards compatibility. I think this is future compatibility we're kind of thinking.
Right, it's leaving it open to extension in the future.
Yeah.
Without us having to do a lot of work.
Cool.
I think we're ready to test.
All right, so now for those of you that haven't seen this, when I do a debug here, it actually opens a browser on Steve's machine also.
It does, it's pretty cool. And there it goes.
Okay, so it opened a browser over there before it opened mine. I'm jealous. So I've already got the page open, so I'm just going to refresh the page over here. And it's going to load, hopefully. Maybe.
Or we broke it.
Or we broke it. I think we broke it. I think we broke it.
We might have broken it.
That feels bad.
Well, that's life.
All right, so if I were to go to the hard-coded website here, goal 1000, help me, Steve. Oh, look at that. You set a breakpoint, didn't you?
No. You got an all
Oh, no. There we go. Look at that. Object reference not set because fill background color get returned null. So fill background color is null.
You know what we should do is give those. Oh, I can't do it because you're debugging.
So I will stop the debugger.
We should give those two strings, the ones that we're going to split on, they should be defaulting to empty strings. So lines, well, I'll just do it. No, you're not debugging. That should have a default value, and that should have a default value. Now, really, we could probably give a default value to every one of those strings because there's generally not a whole lot of reason why we'd want to have null, unless we want to be able to differentiate the difference between I intentionally set this to blank from I did not set this. For now, we'll leave it alone because those other ones shouldn't cause us any heartache at the moment. But let's see if this fixes our issue.
Now, the defaulting you're doing here by saying equals double quote, that's a feature of, what is it? Is it C#6? I think it is?
C#6, right. So it's new-ish, but C#6 has been out for a couple of years now. So
right. So,
but it is, if you're not using it yet, it's definitely worth updating to where you can, because that kind of thing is really nice.
All right. Oh, yeah. And there it is, loaded. I'm going to go back to my preview page and hopefully it loads properly.
Tim Hewer is yelling at us because of my next comment.
You know what? We're equal opportunity offenders for all the different text editors. It's still not showing me my preview here. So let's try that page, and then here's my error. Input string was not in the correct format because it wants to parse a double.
Yeah, it's not going to work, is it?
So maybe that default value should be double quotes with a 0 in it.
Sure. If that makes sense as a default, definitely.
All right. So, yep, I already stopped, so we'll punch a 0 in there. And, Mr. Magoo's pointing out there's some example URLs on the docs page that we can click and use. That's not a bad idea.
Provided they work.
Yeah, provided they work.
Well, I'm saying that we would use those to verify.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Now, don't I have a... I'll tell you what, I'm going to open this page right to the documentation. Close some of these other ones. And let's try the configuration page again.
Yeah, it's working on my end now. I'm clicking on some of your links in the docs.
And they're working?
Yep. Well, okay, they're not blowing up. How about that?
Well, there you go. That's a good start. Okay.
Like smooth step blue to green. I click on that, and it is gray with a little bit of red on the left, and is definitely not a blue to green smooth step.
No.
Now, I think I know why. I think it's because its query string is hard-coded, and it is passing in BG colors instead of background color. So we have to update your doc links if we're going to get that to work. Right.
And the preview is still not working quite properly over here on the configuration. Let's take a look at what it's actually submitting. I'm going to go into F12, and I'm going to look at the network so I can see the actual request here.
Sure, that sounds good.
And I should be able to scroll down. Look at all those requests for Google fonts. Thank you, Google.
That's your drop down at work.
Oh, yeah. And working hard, let me tell you.
Right, now, the other thing that's really cool on my end that people can't necessarily see is that when this browser pops up for me, it's hitting localhost. So on my localhost, I'm running this code in your debug session.
Yeah.
Which is pretty magical.
All right. It's not, I don't see the request for that. So I'm just going to refresh one more time here and see if I can get that request to pop up. There's followers goal configuration. I don't even see it requesting.
This should be an image, right? It's not even building us a URL. It says, here's your URL, and there's nothing there. So there's something's...
Oh, yeah, look at this. 5 errors on the request. All right, so I don't care about that. Go to the console. The server's not found to anything at... Okay, that page doesn't exist right now. Unable to get value property of null reference. Yeah, I think that's...
Okay, so some of our client-side code we haven't got working.
Yeah, the get BG blend looks like is blowing up a little bit for us here. All right. Fortunately, that's just JavaScript that we can change, and it'll repaint the page for us. So I'm going to slide that over. So get BG blend. Right, that's where it's telling us it's erroring out. Let's see.
And it's telling us it can't get to the dot value property. So the only spot we're doing that is line 236, right?
Let me look back at this. All right, there you are. Yeah, right. Is there? Are we not parsing?
Did we change span BG color? We didn't do that, did we?
No.
So there should still be a span BG color, and then we should get, and we got into this if blocks. That means we found some spans. So
there it is. So it found those.
We're going to loop through them, and we're going to say, inside that span, get me tag name input, get me the second one, and grab its value.
Oop.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I was going to say.
A web exception
on connecting to Twitch.
Twitch. Okay.
All right, I'm going to stop debugging so I can get out of that.
That's good.
And I'm going to close the Twitch service. So there's something else that I should take as an issue to create here, is that we don't handle 500 errors from the Twitch service very well. Right, it should fail silently on that or keep track of that and do something. But
right, I should just log it probably.
Yeah, log it. If a certain number of them happen, raise it as a real error. All right. So let me see where you are. So you're looking at the span BG color. So we do have it hanging out there.
Right. And we're saying to grab the second input. So the first input is BG color 1. And the second input is BG blend 1. Is that how it's going to work?
Yeah, so that's the actual... Yeah, that's the actual number, right, that sets that blend there. Sets, right, the blend percentage, right?
I'm curious why this input does not have a name and the other one does, and its name doesn't match its ID.
Good point.
The name will be what gets used when it gets posted. If it were posted, we're not even posting it. In this case, it would only get used if we're using it in the selector down below. But what I'm not sure is why when we get spans, when we get that JavaScript still we haven't changed any of this.
No, we haven't. So what's it actually? The error doesn't feel like a good error message. It's not descriptive enough to me to say, oh yeah, that's exactly what's wrong.
Right. Well, yeah, we're in client-side debugging mode at this point, so I think you want to run it again, not necessarily debug it, but run it. Pull up that page, and then let's look at the JavaScript, look at the DOM, and see what it's doing there. You could also put a breakpoint on the client side if you want.
I was going to say, we have client-side debugging here in, where is it? Right, there's the JavaScript debugging.
Sure. Is that going to work through?
Enable JavaScript debugging for ASP.NET Chrome and IE. So, but I'm in Edge. Ugh.
Use Chrome. What's your problem with Chrome?
I don't have a problem with Chrome. I think Chrome's a wonderful browser. Some of our friends on the Edge team are encouraging us to try using Edge in a few more instances.
All right. Sure. I'm gonna throw a debugger thing on here at Scott Eddy's request.
On 232. All right. So I'm kicking this off, and it's going to launch. You can see Chrome script debugging is enabled. We'll see how this looks in Chrome. So there's my page open. I'm going to go into my configuration page. Bing! All right. Now, did that stop at the same place for you?
Yep.
Cool.
Sort of.
Sort of.
I have an error. It says unable to open configuration, cannot read property create of null. That's in Visual Studio Code. So I don't know what that is.
All right, so I am going to step in at this point. Const spans equals... All right, so that should be something, right? So we do have spans. We have a 0 with span. So it knows it found the 1. All right. So if spans, yeah.
Yeah, basically every time you step, I get an error in VS Code. So that's not totally working for me.
Okay, so I've got
working
result.
on your end, so we can get through this.
I've got a result equals just a comma 1. All right. And he's going to drop off the end of that. So it should just return and fill back. Yeah. So that looks.
So maybe it's another. Maybe it calls it again, and that's where it breaks.
So nothing. All right.
Does your console have any errors now?
Let's take a look. See. So this is the CSS from Cache Google. That's fine. Cannot read the property value of null. Configuration 252. Empty BG color. Ah, look at that. Document get element by ID. What the heck? I wanted this on the bottom. That's better. There it is. URL template equals, and then escape document get element by ID, empty BG color. Oh, and we changed the name of that element, didn't we?
And we didn't do it everywhere because we were foolish and didn't use replace, as someone in the chat suggested.
So that was
because I changed. Did I change the ID? I didn't need to change the ID, but I guess I must have.
Yeah. So you're going to replace it there. And empty font colors, all right. So that should change to empty background color on 187. Malachi is saying, tell the Edge team to implement Vimium plugin for Edge. I'm not familiar with the Vimium plugin. There we go. All right, so we've got now the element IDs line up.
All right, now it's worked.
And
I'm feeling confident.
Feeling good about this? So I'll
just take that debugger line out of there if you didn't already.
No, I didn't. I'll just click continue and let it go through.
Okay.
All right, so cannot read property value of null on 256. So
Did you clear the console, or is it still hitting it? Oh, what's it doing?
It's the current value.
Current.
So here on line 191, it's doing document get element by ID current dot value.
And it should be current value dot value.
Both the element and the URL parameter.
Yes.
So I will change both of those. Is it current value Pascal case there?
It shouldn't matter, but yes. Well, no, it will matter there. And yes, it should be Pascal case.
Okay. So save that. Refresh again. Oh, I didn't take out the bugger. Thanks, Scott Addy. It's still hanging on the same line. Did you pull out the bugger?
I did not.
All right, hang on. Let me refresh.
Did you?
I did not.
I am pulling it out now.
Cool.
Done.
Okay. So if I save that, there it is. That looks like it's loading properly.
Yay.
Now the empty font color isn't being passed, or it's being defaulted to black right now.
Right, and that's because in our controller we had some defaults that we have not pushed over into our model yet.
Okay.
That's why I kept those default strings hanging around. Let's see, followers controller.
All right, so if I bring up followers controller over here.
Line like 90 or so is what I'm looking at. You're not following mine anymore. There it is. Which one is it that you're saying? It's the empty font color?
Yeah, the empty font color is just empty string at this point.
I don't think that's any different.
Yeah.
It's going to come and get set here. It's going to say, well, if it's null or white space, which it will be, then set it to configuration.empty color. Otherwise, leave it alone.
Do I have something in my application, it's app settings, that is setting that? It is. Empty font color is
Black.
Black.
And that's what we're seeing. So I wonder why it was working differently before is the question now.
So there is something, right, in how this Razor page works, where it actually saves those settings in local storage. Oh, and that's a whole nother ball of wax that, dear Lord, could be a whole nother 2 hours just talking about refactoring some of this client-side stuff. So let's not get too far into that one right now.
No. Here's a quick test. If you change that config file and make it white, does it have the desired effect?
So I'm going to change over here on line 32 to fa-fa-fa. Okay. Now, I don't think it automatically reloads all the way down. I don't know if it even automatically reloaded this.
Unless you restart the app, it's probably not going to reread your config.
That's what I'm thinking also. Yeah. Let's stop that. Restart. Let's see. Mr. Magoo says, have you set one local storage will be out of sync with name changes? Yeah, that's... So the local storage... actually, the local storage is reading specific element names. It might not be finding those at all now. Yeah, it didn't pick up that white color. And if I set it here, does it properly pass all the way through?
That's what I just tried. It doesn't seem to work on mine.
Well, I had to click preview and I got it to work.
Ah, same here. Okay.
Okay. And then there should be a... Yeah, the fill font color is actually something that isn't on my user interface yet. Gonna have to fix that at some point. Because it is over here as the configuration option.
Right.
All right, we can figure that one out later. That should be easy.
The next thing that I would want to do, since this seems to be working, it's time to do another commit. But then the next step is to take that line 102 in the controller, where basically it's defaulting things back to config values. And I would pull all of that out of the controller and put that into a service that would do that work. And you could say that that's filling the defaults, or that it's loading from config, or whatever you want to call it. But that should go somewhere else, and then we could test that in isolation from the controller, and certainly without having to actually launch the website to verify that the behavior is working.
For managing those defaults and reading settings.
Correct.
Okay, so let me do that config. That commit. Whew. All right, so I will do a git commit, and then this is now using model binding.
Yes.
Fantastic. All right.
And for now, it occurs to me that our two things that we're using in this block of code here, those on the left-hand side, that's all model, and its type is follower goal configuration. On the right-hand side, the defaults that it's looking for in configuration, like here, those are all the same type. Those are all model goal or follower goal configuration also. So since they're both using the same type, you could probably get away with just putting the logic for doing this mapping into a method on your follower goal configuration type.
Okay.
And that would say something like, load default values or load from config or something like that.
Now, so okay, thinking this through, we have a left side and a right side, right? We have the configuration that's been loaded from our app settings file or from environment variables, and then we also have the configuration that's being passed in on the URL bar, right?
Correct.
So which one do we overlay on top of the other? If the default values are what's in my application configuration, I feel like the things that are being passed on the URL bar are overloads that overlay those.
Correct.
Okay. So.
Right, and someone is saying that we could, use dependency injection to pass in an ICE settings of follower configuration. I believe we're doing that already.
Yes.
You can't see that code anywhere, but here's where that's coming from. Standby reloading. So I think we're doing what you're suggesting already.
Mm-hmm.
But if we're not, let me know if that's not what you're suggesting. He's saying an ICE settings, and we're doing an ICE options, which isn't exactly the same thing. But I'll let him reply if he wants. What would make sense to me down here would be to have something that would say like model. Oh, you're debugging. Can you stop debugging for a second?
Nope, I'm not debugging.
You're not debugging. Why is it not letting me save? Or type.
No typing for you.
Yeah, it won't let me change it. Can you hit enter there and have it work? You're not debugging. Can you can
Oh
edit
no,
there.
that's not working for me either. What have I
no,
done?
no editing for you either.
Let's close and reopen this.
It shows that it has changes. Do you want to save? Sure. All right, good.
Yeah, I can't type. I saw your cursor move down, but it didn't change anything.
Yeah, every time I hit enter, it'll move for a second, and then it just goes back to what it was. Someone suggests the file is locked. This is where Microsoft pops up a little thing and says, to continue editing your code, you will have to buy more credits for the live share service.
Oh, dude, don't go there. Doesn't let me edit. Let guest or host edit. All right.
But it marks it as modified in Visual Studio Code on my end.
That's weird. All right. Let's stop the live share and reconnect and see if that clears this up. All right, and I will.
And this is still preview, so it's amazing that it works as well as it does.
Oh gosh, yes. And to be fair, the team is looking at logs of things that are being passed back and forth, and the feedback from sessions like this one are exactly what they're looking for to help improve the service. This is why everybody doesn't have it yet. It's because they're still trying to figure out some of these rough edges to the service. So there's a padlock on the file tab.
Not for me, but I don't have any padlocks in my view.
So, oh gosh, you're right. It does appear as read-only to me. Why is it?
Yeah, and I still can't touch it. So I think it's on your end. I think you've got to somehow resolve the read-onliness of it. Both files are locked.
That is very weird. It's almost like, right, that I'm almost tempted to say it's like source control is saying, oh, you don't have access to this.
Right, yeah, it's like old school subversion or source safe type.
Is there something hiding under the properties here? No. And that's a really big properties window. Thanks, Visual Studio.
Has Git locked it? Why would Git lock it?
No. That's not a thing. Right, it's clear here. That's
Do
fine.
a git status, just for fun.
Let me close that Visual Studio Code I had open. Nope, we're good.
Okay. So.
Wonder if I do a... There used to be a refresh button here, and it's not there anymore.
Just go right-click on the file in Explorer and tell it that it's not read-only.
Oh, you think it's read-only in Explorer?
I bet. That's what Visual Studio is picking up.
Let's see what we got here. There, and controllers. Nope, it's not read-only over here.
All right. Well, Stack Overflow question number 1 was wrong, or didn't apply. Solution Explorer.
And, ooh, I don't have full control. Oh no, I do. I'm an administrator. And actually, look, the project file is, yeah, the padlock I think is the checked-in padlock, and it's not the file locked padlock that you're seeing. But I still can't make any changes inside this file. Do I need to close this project and reopen it? Certainly slows things down.
If you mouse over that padlock, does it tell you something? You get a tooltip?
Checked in.
Okay. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah. Because I've got the same one up here on the project file.
Right. Okay.
Oh, sysinternals handle tool. I don't have it installed on this machine. But I don't think there's a problem with the file, because if I
Have you restarted Visual Studio just as a last resort?
We could certainly do that. But here, looking in the file, if I
you can do that and save OK.
Yeah.
And now it's modified in Visual Studio, so your blue icon changed. Can you touch it now?
Nope. It's a Visual Studio thing.
Let's restart Visual Studio and hope.
Say it isn't so. All right, I'm going to restart. That feels bad. I need to make sure I start the correct Visual Studio, because I have several Visual Studios.
Right, and this is a preview.
Yep. All part of the fun of using preview tools. But I think the benefit that we're seeing certainly outweighs a little clink and clunk every now and again like this. So let me resize that appropriately. Cool. And I can type now in this file. So I'm clicking sharing, so I get my live share happening again, and then I can send that back to you. Put.
I think we're going to have time to put in a few little to-dos, and then we might have to call it for today.
That's fine. I'm not sure why. Yeah, I see Restream is having a little bit of an issue connecting to both.
You haven't Skyped me the new link yet, right?
No, I'm waiting for it to reopen here.
Okay.
And I'm missing some of the messages over here from Twitch. Sometimes folks run into this and they end up restarting Visual Studio. Come on. Come on, little spinner. And I think now I've angered live share, because I just closed Visual Studio instead of ending it. Somehow C# Fritz reminds me of the chess software Fritz. No connection. None. I am not that good at chess. I'm not bad, but I'm not great. I'm not one of those fellows you'll see down at the park playing chess on the benches.
Not till you're retired.
Not till I'm retired. That's not going to be for a while. This isn't. Yeah, I'm.
That's all right. You drive and I'll just talk. We'll wrap this up. So jump to followers controller. Let's pop down to where.
But let me just try closing and reopening and see if that does this. No, that's not even going to release this thing.
So that's what started this problem.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. All right, I'll reopen the project and we'll just talk through it. All right. So I'm in followers controller, yes.
Yeah.
And we
get rid of your right hand tab if you want.
Oh, look at that. Now the invite link popped.
Oh, wow. All right. We're going to try it?
Why not?
Okay.
We're funny like that. All right. So we were down in the goal, and it was this left-right stuff.
Yeah.
Here.
Now your link tells me that the owner of this workspace seems to be offline, even though on your screen I can see it says sharing. No workspace found. Please contact session owner for a new link.
I will create a new link. Is that a link? I just saw the letter E pop up. Yeah, it is. Okay.
Hey, now it's working.
Fantastic. All right, I am going to remove these commented outlines here.
Those can go. All right, and what I was last going to suggest was that we could, as a next step, put a method to load fallback or default values into our model on that type itself. And so driving that API from the client, from this controller, I was going to type in what I thought it might look like on line 103, and it would be something like model dot, load default values or something like that, and then pass in configuration. And then I would control dot to generate that method.
Yep.
And then I would copy everything from line 105 to 115 and put it into that method and then tweak it as necessary to make it work.
Oh my gosh. All right, that feels so much simpler over here in this. So everywhere that I use the word model in here, I could probably replace with just the word this. Yeah.
Yep.
So I'm going to do a Control H, and just do a, I think I can just, there we go.
Yeah.
And then everywhere that it's using configuration with a capital C, like that, I can replace with lowercase.
Yep.
And last, I need a control dot on this.
And your last problem is that stream service. So that line 46, we're going to need to pull back out of there.
Okay.
We'll just leave that in the controller for now, because it has access to that service.
So I'll do that.
And then, yep.
Equals.
Model. No, it's all model, isn't it?
There, that works. Yeah, that's fine. All right, do that. Get everything lined up nice.
Someone said we broke the class name with that method. Not
oh,
sure.
Because we replaced the word configuration.
Oh, yeah. Don't do that.
Don't do that one.
I thought you were doing a rename on the variable, not a string rename. That's all right.
Then that works, right? Why can't it find that? Uh-oh.
It just hasn't updated.
No, I've also messed up the namespace. Because that was models.
Yeah, that's why you don't do string control H's.
Thanks, Dave.
Uh-huh.
All right. So this should be model load default values. Now, why isn't that loading? Right? That should have passed in
It
there.
doesn't see load default values as a method because
There it goes. That's better. I had renamed it. I had changed it to a lowercase there as well.
Right.
Bad strings. So that looks.
It's still red on the controller call from my side.
How's it now?
What's it say on yours?
That looks good here.
Good. All right. Yeah, mine's not current. Let's see. Close, reload.
Right. If I try building. The first round of unit testing, it builds. Ship it.
That's right.
So we've taken all that business logic for how to format, how to handle all the different properties, and we put it in that configuration object that already knows and really should know how to interact with itself.
And this goal method was, I don't know, 40 or 50 lines long, and now it's like 3, 4. Yeah. Some of those are comments that can go away. Like, I'm pretty sure we give it line 102 because we gave a good name to our method.
Oh, yeah. And then we're setting the current value as necessary. That feels like something that should be here, where we're actually composing from our stream service to give follower information as part of this controller.
Yep, I can live with that. That looks fine.
All right.
Still keeping everything pretty tight here, so that's good. I think we can get rid of our comments on line 89 to 92.
Yep, because we have...
Unless you need any of that still, but I don't think you do.
I don't think so either.
And we did change a little bit of behavior, maybe. Like, say, font name is a tilde, right? That used to be a default on our method here. And inside of load default values, we are using that tilde. We are looking for that tilde. Same thing for that current equals -1, although that's not in here. So let's just talk about the tilde for a second. So
here on
line 45, we're looking for a tilde that's never set anywhere. So if we want that to be the default, we need to set it on the property as its default.
So here on 16, I will default to tilde.
Yep.
Put a semi at the end of that. All right.
In your white space, since you're going to hate my tight list of properties.
Oh yeah, I'm absolutely going to hate it. All right, so that's in place. So now this should work properly here on 45.
Right, and we could write some tests that verify that this does what we expect, and we would have a test that says, loads font name from configuration if font name is tilde or something like that, and that would be easy to test.
Okay. But the point of this refactoring is all of the logic for managing this configuration is in a single responsibility place with the configuration. This class knows how to receive that configuration, and it knows how to properly manage that hierarchy of the different places it could come from to set itself appropriately.
Yep. And it's likely that we might end up using this in more than one place, and now we can load default values anywhere in your system that you need to, instead of having it all locked into a single controller action method.
Cool. Okay. I'm feeling better about that. So we can get rid of... Well, did we set the default width to 800? Is that in here?
I don't know that we did.
No, we didn't.
Anything that's in those defaults that used to be on the action, we need to set here.
All right, so width was one of them. Current, we did set. Goal was... Well, okay, hang on.
Was 0. We're saying it's 1.
Yeah. Do we do anything with that 0? Yeah, we do.
Yep, so that should be a 0 on there.
So I'll change that. And
And later on, if we decide we like different values as our defaults, we can always change them. But our goal during refactoring is to not change the behavior that we had before we started.
Okay. And really, we could have these defaults as a constant inside this class so that we aren't actually pushing a number around.
Certainly.
Okay. So I think that was the last of them, and I can get rid of this.
Right.
Cool.
The other thing you could do if you wanted on your model, if you really are using that 0 to represent not set, is you could use a nullable int, and then you can just check to see if it has a value or not.
Mm-hmm. But nullable, so here's the thing with a nullable int. The configuration load doesn't, it gets a little grouchy around managing that, is what I found.
Okay.
Okay, so this is a lot simpler. Let's just run it to make sure it still works properly.
Yeah, we can do a commit and a push or a pull request and call it a day.
Fantastic.
Or at least a couple hours.
Yeah, right. All right, and go to my configuration page, and this should load properly. Yes. So it doesn't have some of those default settings saved properly, but we can come back and fix those later. So we'll do that, and I can still do cool things like this. And that works. Fantastic. Right, change this font. Let's make it, oh no. Is that going to work? So the font selection doesn't look like it's working, but we'll figure that out. We were having a problem with this the other day.
Well, I think if you look at your console, I think you were getting issues with loading the fonts, weren't you?
Some of the fonts. Yeah, look at this.
Yeah, I'm testing it on my end as well and seeing the same thing.
Yeah.
There's also a cannot set property on click of null that might be a real bug on our side in configuration 171. Do you see that in your console?
Yeah, document get element by ID. Ah. Okay, so we changed the names of some of these text boxes.
Oh, there's an array of them there. Yeah.
Yeah, this is adding the automatic update, right? The automatic update and preview on these. That's pretty easy to fix.
Cool.
So, but otherwise, I think we're in a great place here where, excuse me, we've updated and made this code a heck of a lot more manageable, a lot easier to read. We've moved it into places where it just kind of makes sense now. I'm going to copy that into there. And it's empty font color. Oh, look at that. You already did that for me.
Something else that would probably help us, since that is a Razor view that has all those client-side things in it, we could probably do something like name of model dot empty background color, having a string.
Okay.
If we later on refactor that, it should stay consistent.
Yeah. All right. So it's not telling me what the TB is here. Oh, you know what? We changed current, didn't we?
Current value. Yeah, we changed it to current value.
Yeah. There we go. So, yeah, the CSS loading of some of these pages, okay, yeah, that's erroring out, but I should be able to get some of these other things. Yeah, there we go. Now the Google fonts load properly. Lemon is the other one that I like to test with because it looks funny. Cool. Oh my gosh. Yeah, and I like the idea of doing the name of on some of these just to make sure that they line up properly.
Right.
And they just follow it around instead of passing magic strings around.
Yep.
So
that would save us from some of the pain that we had this time.
Absolutely. So here's what I think we should do. You were suggesting, and I think it's a good idea. Let's commit and close up our work for today, and then let's open a couple issues to kind of track some of these things that we've stumbled on and would be good to refactor for the future. So I will do a git commit and a moved logic to, what was it, follower goal configuration?
Yes.
Cool. I will git push, and it's going to tell me, yeah, I got to set my upstream. I wish it would ask me and say, do you want to do this, or would you, and just set it for me, you know?
Does it ask you to do that every single time?
If you don't set it appropriately at the start, yeah.
Mm.
All right, so now I have that in my project. Compare and pull request, and I'll push that into my dev branch. Oh, look at all those tabs. I'm not merging, not into master. I'm going to put this into dev. There we go. All right. And we'll say something like refactored follower goal.
Sure.
And I will create this as a pull request, because then I can squash it and merge it as just one here. Now, squash and merge versus rebase and merge.
I usually squash and merge, but it's totally up to the owner of the repo what they prefer.
All right, I will do squash and merge, and click it. Yep, that's fine. And I could delete this branch, but I don't want to just yet. And then I think we should create a couple of issues here.
Sure.
To use name of to pass follower goal.
Pass, yeah, model properties, yep.
And this is in views, what was it? Followers goal CSHTML.
Yep.
And I'm going to add some labels to that as a good first issue and help wanted. If one of the viewers wants to take a look and see if they can.
It's goal configuration.cshtml.
Is it?
Yeah.
There we go. And I didn't spell that name properly. There we go. Okay, and what was the other issue that we saw? Oh, we weren't handling 500 errors in the Twitch service well.
Sure.
That was an error that we stumbled onto.
Popped up as we were going along.
Need to handle 500 errors. HTTP 500 errors from Twitch service. Cool. All right. So we opened a couple issues to kind of track some of the things that we stumbled upon and that we want to enhance in a future session while we're in here working on the code. We did a ton of great refactoring in there to make it a heck of a lot easier to manage this follower goal configuration. I feel like we still have a good bit of refactoring that we could do client side with all this JavaScript, how we're building these URLs in here. I feel like this could be simplified at some point, and that's got to be a future thing to look at. But in our C# code, this is a heck of a lot easier. We're back to under 7 lines of code to just generate and output information about this.
Yep, looks good.
It dramatically simplified how the configuration is managed. All that business logic is with the configuration. And we've actually made it easier now to configure some of these things from application settings as well, where they were being passed around as view bag and just being calculated at the last minute. So I'm pretty happy with these changes. Thank you, Steve, for helping me out here today. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Cool.
Yeah, one thing I see in looking at this that I would try and refactor, probably one last thing or another thing later,
please,
is it looks like a lot of those lines are basically doing the same thing. Like if you look at line 43 and 44, those lines are identical except for the name of the property. So that's just begging for some kind of a helper method that's, going to say, hey, if it's blank, set it to the config value, otherwise, leave it alone. And you could, write a little method and then use that method for all of these lines, and it would be a lot smaller then too.
It just keep calling that same thing, but iterate over a collection of properties.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'd create a collection of properties necessarily. I'd probably still call it, one line per property, because there is a little bit of, they're not all consistent here, and you're not doing it for every property. But for the 4 or 5 times that you're doing basically the same thing, I would call a method to do it, just so it's not quite so wide on the screen.
Okay. It's a good idea. Cool.
Cool.
Well, thank you very much. I think that's where we're going to wrap up today. We went a little bit over where we wanted to be, but I think we're all right with that. I will, of course, take the recording of this, pass it over to YouTube, so it's available for folks a little bit later today. Thanks so much for joining me, Steve. On Thursday, I don't have a guest currently scheduled, so maybe we'll come through and do some of this refactoring in a little open code session. And I have a couple pull requests hanging out there that we'll take a look at as well from some of our viewers. So thanks so much, everybody, for joining us, and I'll see you next time.
Bye.